In 1948, Hungarian Cardinal József Mindszenty was arrested. Up to that point, he was known worldwide as a fiercely defiant, unbroken critic of the communist regime. But when he appeared in court just a month later, he was unrecognizable. He moved like a robot, stared blankly, and calmly confessed in a monotone voice to an absurd list of crimes, including stealing the crown jewels and plotting to start World War III. Observers were terrified by the physical evidence. When analysts reviewed his confession, they found that his signature had changed completely. It appeared as though his entire personality had been wiped clean. Western intelligence saw the cardinal's change as proof of a scientific breakthrough, a literal weapon capable of overwriting the human soul. Mindszenty fit a terrifying historical pattern. During the Moscow show trials of the 1930s, loyal, die-hard revolutionaries had stood in open court and enthusiastically begged the judge for their own executions.
The detail that kept analysts awake at night was the lack of physical trauma. These confessing men had no broken bones and no bruises. They appeared unharmed, yet entirely compliant. This graph illustrates the Western theory that explained it, derived from Ivan Pavlov's research on dogs. It shows that under extreme, sustained stress, an animal reaches a trauma threshold. When they cross it, their normal behavioral response collapses and inverts. Friendly dogs become vicious, aggressive dogs become passive. Pavlov called it the super paradoxical phase. Intelligence officers deduced that if you could trigger this phase in a human, you could destroy their identity and mold them into someone new. The CIA gave this theoretical weapon a catchy name, brainwashing. By 1950, the CIA decided they needed their own brainwashing program. They launched Project Bluebird, officially authorizing their staff to explore unconventional methods for extracting information, including sensory manipulation, hypnosis, and purposeful brain damage. To conduct these tests, they designed highly specialized environments. They built what they called the magic room, a cell engineered to completely shatter a prisoner's sense of space and time. Looking at the design of this room, every angle was slightly off. The bed was tilted to make sleep impossible. The lighting rotated endlessly. The furniture was translucent. Guards fed the subjects at random intervals, bringing dinner 5 minutes after breakfast to destroy their internal clocks. Meanwhile, British intelligence took a less architectural approach. They sat subjects before a spinning disc and blasted them with continuous white noise until their cognitive function shut down. The goal of these auditory and spatial nightmares was regression. They wanted to break an adult mind down until it was as empty and suggestible as an infant's. But building tilted rooms and blasting noise took time. The agencies wanted faster results. They began hunting for chemical shortcuts, heavily testing so-called truth serums. There was very little scientific rigor involved. British psychiatrists later admitting their strategy was essentially pumping patients full of various narcotics and waiting to see what they blurted out. The CIA developed a massive obsession with hallucinogens. They famously tried to purchase the world's entire supply of LSD and sent agents to Mexico to locate indigenous magic mushrooms. Driven by Cold War paranoia, these agencies discarded medical ethics. They secretly slipped LSD and experimental chemicals to unwitting citizens, treating the streets of New York and San Francisco as open-air testing grounds. The absolute peak of this testing program was a highly specific, terrifying goal. The CIA wanted to create a Manchurian candidate, a sleeper agent who could be hypnotized, ordered to assassinate a target, and then safely forget they ever pulled the trigger. To prove this was possible, the military set up a controlled test. They hypnotized an ordinary young soldier, handed him an unloaded pistol, and convinced him that an officer standing 10 feet away was an enemy combatant. The soldier raised the gun and pulled the trigger. When the unloaded weapon clicked, he lunged forward and tackled the officer. This medical schematic illustrates a fieldwork technique the CIA developed off those results, called rapid induction. The idea was to physically grab a suspect's neck, compress their carotid arteries, and yell "sleep." They hoped cutting off blood flow to the brain would induce instant hypnosis. In 1963, they actually tried this in the field. 2 agents cornered a suspected Soviet asset in a Mexican hotel room and lunged for his throat. Unsurprisingly, the man didn't fall into a deep hypnotic trance. He fought back, and the highly classified intelligence operation devolved into 3 men clumsily wrestling on the floor. Intelligence agencies spent fortunes chasing the sci-fi fantasy of a programmable super spy. What they actually achieved was a series of undignified hotel brawls and a mountain of wasted resources. Eventually, reality caught up with the program. A 1963 internal CIA audit finally called out the severe risks involved, pointing to the massive legal and moral violations of testing mind-altering drugs on United States citizens. After decades of funding, thousands of shattered lives, and endless ethical breaches, the CIA uncovered no magic method for mind control. It simply did not exist. So, what about Cardinal Mindszenty and the Soviet prisoners who sparked this panic? The Soviet brainwashing that sparked the panic was a result of total isolation, sleep deprivation, and starvation. They broke the cardinal with physical exhaustion. Brainwashing was a highly successful marketing term coined by Western intelligence. It applied a sleek, futuristic coat of paint to the oldest, most brutal forms of human abuse.